Yes, everyone, welcome back to the channel. Stephen Howson. I want to talk to you today about Rashford and Bruno and Erik Ten Hag. Now, I am seeing a lot of comments from people and a lot on social media, which might explain a lot of this, about whether or not Manchester United should drop Marcus Rashford and Bruno Fernandes. Now, I'll go through their stats for this season so far. I'll have a look at what they've done previous seasons, and then I'll give you my thoughts on it, if that's all right with you lot. And feel free to get your comments in. I'll come to them after I've wrapped all of that up. Okay, so Rashford has been involved in 4 goals in his last 4 Champions League matches that he started at Old Trafford. He's got 3 goals, 1 assist. The last United player that managed to do that was 1 goal in 5, and that was Giggs back in September 2011. Rashford has got 1 goal and 3 assists in 11 games so far this season, which is below par for him, and it's below par for a forward for Manchester United. The issue with Rashford is he's taken 33 shots, which is only behind and only 1 behind Erling Haaland for the most shots taken in the league this season. Now, for those of you that watched the Rashford video that I did recently, the problem is around about just under half of those shots Marcus has taken have been blocked. Now, that to me suggests a little bit of a decision-making thing or a little bit of a technique thing. And the reason that I think it suggests those things is if you watch Marcus shoot, the likes of Robin van Persie and some of the real elite strikers of the ball, they have this timing of shooting, which is often referred to as a half step, where they hit the ball when you're not expecting it. They hit the ball mid-stride. They hit the ball when the keeper's legs aren't set, and it's a real elite, top-tier skill to be able to do that. Now, not every striker has got that. Like the likes of Alan Shearer didn't have that. Alan Shearer was very much in the mould of Marcus Rashford, where he used a lot of power when he finished. So you don't necessarily need it to be elite, but those who have it genuinely are elite. And Marcus doesn't have that sort of finishing, and he's never had that sort of finishing. When he was coming through as a 15, 16-year-old in the academy, I remember writing an article back in 2015 or something like that about him, where I said, like, he plays angry, and his finishing is always this little bit almost rushed. But the big thing about his finishing is it's quite telegraphed. So when Marcus shoots, he sets his body up and he goes through the motions. Like if I said to you, close your eyes and think of David Beckham taking a free kick, he winds up like there's whole body movements going into him before he strikes the ball. Marcus has a similar thing when he's shooting. And I think sometimes in the crowded nature of a penalty box, he's putting too much power in it, which requires all these additional body movements, when actually all you got to do is pass it in the net half the time. And I think he goes for power rather than placement a little bit too often. And I think that shows in the stats. I think it shows that this shot location isn't bad. It's in the areas you would expect to score, but he's getting his shots blocked. That to me suggests a technique and timing thing. He's either putting too much on it, so it's obvious, or he's taking too long to get it out there and telegraphing what he's about to do, or he's taking shots where he hasn't got the capability to be able to shoot because there's people in his way, and that's the times that he should maybe look to offload it. He started off the season, I think he played a little bit selfishly at the start of the season, where he was looking to just score himself, because he's obviously played down the middle, hasn't scored a lot of goals. He's probably weighing on his mind that he needs to get on the score sheet, isn't getting on the score sheet, and then it's the same old thing, like when strikers are relaxed, they score for fun. When they start going, I need a fucking goal, that's when they start actually really not actually getting those goals. And I think Marcus just almost needs to relax. The flip side of what's going on with Marcus is defensively, whether it's by instruction or whether it's his choice, and I really don't know. I'm leaning on the side of it looking like it's his choice rather than it being a straight up instruction. He doesn't look interested when United don't have the ball. Now, in mitigation for that, he makes a lot of runs that don't get picked up. A lot of runs. And they are taxing. Sprints. Because Marcus doesn't do anything slow, does he? So they are taxing. And I wonder if those are affecting, his ability to be able to work hard for the team off the ball. Again, that's me speculating. I don't know the answer to that. But the fact that he's only behind Erling Haaland in terms of shots taken suggests that he has to adapt or evolve his striking and his finishing if he's going to be considered elite. Marcus is capable of going on some incredible runs of form, like white hot runs of form. But he might be a form player because we do see him blow hot and cold occasionally, and it seems to be in bunches. It doesn't seem to be inconsistent, even though it is inconsistent in its nature. It seems to be like quite consistent, and it's quite consistently ordinary, or it's quite consistently amazing, or it's quite consistently poor. He doesn't seem to go from one week to the next. It seems to be weeks and weeks and weeks of the same level of performance, and I don't know what the reason for that is. Now, Bruno Fernandes, if we look at his first half against Sheffield United, 50 touches, 22 passes completed. He won 4 out of his 5 ground duels. He made 3 clearances, 2 out of 3 tackles won, 2 key passes, 1 assist. He is key to our play. And yes, he loses the ball, but I've said so many times, I urge you to go and look at the other players that are creating chances and go and see how frequently they lose the ball. I ask you to, because you will be shocked. Because it's not brought up anywhere near as much as the status of how much Bruno Fernandes loses it. But he's also, last season he was the most creative player in a shocking United side. He created more chances than anybody else in the league. This year he's behind only Maddison and Trippier. So he's still being at his creative best. He's only got 3 assists. That's on everybody else. A lot of them probably came from the chances that he created for Marcus that Marcus didn't finish. But where is the narrative coming from that these two are the problem at Manchester United? I would argue Marcus's finishing needs to get better. But he's getting into places where he can score a goal. I think it will come. I will admit freely he has not been anywhere near the level required for him this season. And if I was giving him some advice, I would say, just work hard in games. If it comes, it comes. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But don't worry about it. If you come off the pitch and say, do you know what? I worked hard. I tracked my man. I got some tackles in. I made runs off the ball. That's all you can ask. When it ain't going your way, sometimes it ain't going your way. Make a simple pass and just run a bit harder. And sometimes it comes for you. You know, people are really, really looking to hammer these. I don't know if it's the anti-United agenda that the likes of TalkSport and people like that put out. Nowhere else would be talking about, oh, why is he not doing this? Or why is he not doing this? There are players, big money players across the league, still not even performing to the level that these guys are performing, and it never gets brought up. People always look for the answer at Manchester United being someone who isn't playing. Let me take you back to last season with Marcus and Bruno Fernandes. So Bruno Fernandes had, let me just pull it up, 29 goals and assists last year. 29, 14 goals, 15 assists. That is genuinely elite. Genuinely elite. For a midfielder or even a number 10, that is elite. Finished the season as the number 1 the number 1 chance creator in the country, and also come away with almost 30 goals and assists. You tell me how much you'd have to spend in Europe to find someone that could come and do the same sort of thing as that. Marcus, 41. 41 goals and assists. Now, the people demanding Marcus is dropped. Who's going to score those goals? The people demanding Bruno is... I mean, people are asking for Garnacho. People are asking for Hannibal to be played over these. Now, I think those guys should be getting 10 and 15 minutes, but none of them have taken the place of either of these two just yet. You know, Garnacho did get starts at the start of the season and was dreadful, was arguably worse than what the level of performance I'm seeing out of Marcus Rashford at the moment. So where is this narrative coming from? Now, I think Erik Ten Hag is not immune from criticism, and I will criticise things that I believe are fair to criticise. Away form, absolutely worth criticising. You know, that needs to be fixed this season. But there has to be realism, and there has to be an acceptance that when you're missing your best players, the results will not be the same. You know, look at Manchester City losing Rodri, just lose 3 out of 4. He misses 4 games, they lose 3 of them. This is Manchester City with so-called best manager in the world, right? And United have had an injury crisis like I can't really remember an injury crisis this bad, to be honest with you. If you want to criticise Ten Hag, I think the one thing that you can criticise is the blind spot that he's got with Anthony. I think that would be a thing that you can validly criticise him for. But the guys had no defence. The guys had a new goalkeeper bedding in. The guys had a midfield completely overrun and had no opportunity to play his first choice together. He's had the right winger situation where all three of our first choice right wingers are in various different situations. This has been about as hard as a season as I've known a manager have. And we're 6 points off the top. The issue is 6 points off the top doesn't tell the full story. We've been shite. You know, we've obviously been shite in the Champions League and we've been shite in the league for our own standard. But I think this narrative that's coming up about Rashford and Bruno, players that have carried the team for as long as those two have actually carried the team, and you can't deny that they've carried the team and also carried this manager. Those two players will absolutely be played back into form. Those two players will not be dropped. Those two players are not the problem at Manchester United. They both could be better. They are not the problem. If you're suggesting that they're dropped for the likes of Garnacho and Mabry, I think you either don't know football or you've got an ulterior agenda against these two. Like I said, they're not playing well. But what they've done for the club in very recent history, you know, they're allowed to allow it to fall off the cliff just a little bit, I think. Grizz says the second season of any manager is the hardest. You either have to improve on last year or you're on a slope. I trust Ten Hag. People need to chill. I would agree with that one. The big Lebowski says, do I not believe there can be addition by subtraction? If you drop Rashford and lose 40 goals, but 5 players all score 10, then you gain 10 goals. Which 5 players are going to score you those 10 goals, mate? And why would they all suddenly start to score 10 goals because Marcus isn't dropped? I mean, the theory mathematically makes sense, but in reality, who are those players that are going to come in and do that? Cap or Die says they haven't carried the team last season. Our defence was just as important as our attack. It was, yeah, 1,000,000%. And that's why it's a team game. And that's why I'm saying they're not the problem. You've just agreed with me. Thank you. Glenn says basic mistakes have cost us dearly this season. Totally agree. Buffy says they don't know football. It's bloody clear to anyone who's ever coached at any level. I think anyone who's ever watched any level, to be honest. Mohammed says, do I think Pep's going to sign Rashford and Bruno? No, Pep's going to sign Matoma than Rashford. But he's not going to get the opportunity to sign him. So what sort of comment is that? That's a ridiculous comment. Super chat from Ant says, get Ten Hag wanting his brand of football, but maybe we just need to do what works right now. Easier when you're winning. Do you know what? I understand what you're saying. But managers are by nature and also by design and also by requirement have to be stubborn and have to believe in their system and their style of play. They just have to. Against all odds, they have to believe in their system above anything else. Because if they're going in and going, you have to tell players, this is what I want. Bosh, bosh, bosh. And it has to be that clear. You can't then go, well, if that's not working, no, we can just do it a different way. Because then the players aren't going to trust you. Your message has to be clear. There's never been a manager with a wishy-washy philosophy that's been successful. Never. You know, there's been managers that have been adaptive, like Jose Mourinho, I would argue, adapts to the opposition, but his message is we will adapt. We will find a way to attack using whatever. That was how he worked it, but that's not everyone's ability to do that. And also, Jose really burns his players out by the intensity in which he plays with that. I think for it to be a successful system, of a successful philosophy, you have to recruit players that are naturally able to play the system that you're looking for. And I think it has to be something that they're naturally able to slip into without having to concentrate for 90 minutes. In that sense, it has to be easy for them. And that's sometimes why academy players, if the club has had a dedicated philosophy throughout different age groups, that's why academy players come into the first team and look really good, because they know the system that they're asked to play. Like, rarely do you see a 16, 17, 18-year-old come in and do a sort of Ander Herrera on Eden Hazard job. That's always an older head that they get to do that. But you can see academy players come in and look free and look like they know the system and thrive in a system. And that's because they're not learning something new all the time, and therefore it's easy to them. I think the most successful philosophies are the ones where you just instinctively know what you're trying to do. And that's why sometimes these things can take a long time to really bed in. And then people will always point at what Postecoglou's doing at Tottenham, and people will always point at, like, oh, look how successful Brighton have been recently. Brighton have been building that for years and years and years and years, and they maybe just appointed the perfect guy in De Zerbi to be able to take it to potentially another level. And that's all in tandem with their recruitment. Like, their recruitment isn't at odds with their playing staff. Their recruitment isn't at odds with their manager. They work together, and that's all I've ever wanted for Manchester United, is a cohesive recruitment that provides the manager what he wants without getting our arse handed to us in the transfer market. NT says, thoughts on fans itching to get on players back the first opportunity rather than the supporters and back them. We need the old siege mentality, block out all of vitriol. Do you know what? I'm reading Daniel Taylor's book called, I think it's called This Is the One. I can't remember the name of it. It's literally on my bedside table downstairs. I'd run and grab it. And it's got the press conferences with Sir Alex Ferguson. It's basically a diary of I think it's a year of press conferences with Sir Alex Ferguson. And it's basically 2005, 2006. And we were not great that year. And this is on the back of what had just happened with the Glazers. So it's great going back in time and going, oh, fucking hell, yeah. Sir Alex Ferguson was getting shit at games, which is unfathomable now. But I do remember Sir Alex Ferguson getting shit at games. He was experimenting with a 4-5-1 formation, which in reality was 4-3-3, right? But it was called 4-5-1 because of the way it was deployed, right? So we didn't quite have the control to make it a full 4-3-3, and the players that we had, ultimately when you get Rooney, Tevez, Ronaldo, it becomes 4-3-3 because you've got three very attacking players. But we was trying to make it work with five midfielders, so in theory it kind of was a 4-5-1. But people in the crowd was chanting, I remember this, were chanting 4-4-2. I remember it clear as day. I do remember, I don't really remember too much of it in the ground. Daniel Taylor writes about some of the shit that Fergie got in the ground. I don't remember too much of that. But I do remember people chanting for 4-4-2. And this is when Fergie was going through a bit of a wobble, like, and you look at the personnel that he was getting out. Like, you had Jemba. Rio was partnered with Mikel Sylvester. You had Alan Smith in the middle of the park or up front. Like, of course it wasn't working because the personnel weren't right. Doesn't mean Fergie didn't know what he's doing. Doesn't mean Rio was shit. Doesn't mean, like, once you brought Vidic in, you go, oh shit. Once you get Van der Sar in, and it's like, once you start getting the jigsaw pieces, we went from people literally chanting at Sir Alex Ferguson inside Old Trafford after everything he did, telling him he's fucking shit and doesn't know what he's doing, to going back to winning European champions. It took him time, and he was the greatest ever. He had a few years. You had the Arsenal's draw a lots. You had Mourinho's Chelsea come in, and it took those years for United to figure out. Like, we went through a massive change in that. The 2003 side that won the league, Laurent Blanc, Barthez, Veron, Rude. That had to be dismantled. That wasn't a great Manchester United side. It had to be redone. And then he redid it with, ironically, an all-English midfield that no one in England ever tried to play, of Scholes, Hargreaves and Carrick. Literally European champions, never seen the light of day for England, ironically. Rooney, Tevez, Ronaldo up front. Back four, Wes Brown, Rio Vidic, Evra, Van der Sar in net. What a fucking team. But you roll it back 3 years to see the team that he was fucking with. When we're playing Maguire and Johnny Evans at centre-half, this is your fucking Jemba Sylvester moments. I can see the way we want to play. We just have to get us there. And it's not the easiest thing to get there. It's going to be fucking hard work. And it is going to suck. And you're competing in a Premier League which is very fucking tight at the top at the moment. No doubt about it. Fergles with a super chat there says, the Rashford thing really annoys me. He's everything we should be getting behind. We need to build him up and he'll get up. The Scousers are great with that for their players and changing narratives. Exactly. Theo says, I simp for Rio too hard. Hullet was 3 times the player of Rio. Mate, just fucking leave, shall ya? Rio's the second best defender this league has ever fucking seen, right? Simple. I don't simp for him. I tell him to his face he wasn't as good as Yap Stam, and he knows that. Lucas says, what currently worries me is that Højlund is making plenty of good runs and he's not getting the balls played through centrally. He will improve and he'll get used to it as well. Just one more go says, in my opinion, Rashford's worst trait is his attitude. Puts the ball across for Højlund, who narrowly just misses. What does Rashford do? Gives his teammate a clap for good effort. I don't understand. Grizz says Gullit was a midfielder. Hullet was a midfielder. He was both at the end of the day. Dennis says all players need facilitation. The thing for me was that a centre mid, Frankie, was Ten Hag's first priority. What would solve so many problems now, but 3 transfer windows and we still haven't got one. Keegan says, can you see how he wants to play? Because I can't see Ten Hag's philosophy. Yeah, it's fucking abundantly clear. But we don't have the personnel that are able to carry it out. Or if we do have the personnel that can carry it out, they're not fit or they're not in form. It will get there. Yeah. Minal says, if the midfield clicks and we start to exert more control, our attack and defence will start to improve. We're conceding too many shots and not taking enough ourselves. This for me, the controlling games. I can't remember who the fuck said it. Oh, it was someone good. It might have been Cruyff. The faster the ball goes forward, the faster it comes back. And that, if you watch Manchester United, at the start of the season, Wolves, Nottingham Forest, fucking hell, weekend. The faster it went forward, the faster it came back. Sheffield United are doing it to us. Tonight, Copenhagen will do that to us because they're a good transitional side. And if you don't play out effectively, you're not going to control the game. We have to get better at playing it out effectively, and that means the midfield needs to come back. Ant says, we're too nice. I think we need more bastard. I'd agree with that. SH says, Rashford is a mediocre player, unfortunately. Just got lucky last year with those stats. Okay. I think keeping possession and keeping it simple. Yeah, I agree with that, says Zeme. Nathan says, Liverpool never doubt Nunes, so why do so many teams do it for Højlund? Don't know. Connor says, if you want to play a possession style, you need to face a lot of low blocks. Rashford isn't the main man going forward, just hasn't got the skill set. He has a place, though. I agree to a certain degree that if you are facing against low blocks, the best of Marcus's traits aren't evident, but he's still a good dribbler who still has a lot of, in his locker. But he has to learn when the right time to hit the byline is, because against the low block, you want to hit the byline and then check back and change the direction. You can, against as many low blocks, cut inside when there's 5-6 people inside the box and then try and smash one from just inside the D. That is why I think a lot of his shots get blocked. Liam says, it's looking fine margins. I also swear I've had a lot of chances, and if we put away, fans would think we're a good team. Jim says, do I think Rio was better than Vidic? Yeah, I do. I think Vidic was a fucking absolute warrior. He would put his head in places that most people wouldn't. I think he defended absolutely aggressively. And I think because he defended aggressively... Look, I think with Vidic, there's some of the reason why people think John Terry was a good defender. Vidic was a genuinely good defender. People just think John Terry was a good defender. But Vidic couldn't play with the ball anywhere near the level of the likes of Rio or Stam. He would occasionally get caught out a little bit high up the pitch because the nature of what he did, basically you had a stopper and you had a cover. So Vidic would go in and smash someone or go and try and win the ball 1v1 high, and Rio would cover in behind. So a lot of Rio's defensive work was organisation and cover, and he could cover because he had the pace to be able to cover. And people want to talk about his ball playing, but defensively, Rio was a fucking absolute... Look at the size of the fucker. I think he's bigger now than when he played. He's broader now than when he played. But Rio was a fucking defender. That whole stay on your feet stuff, you know, there was a lot of truth in that, because staying on your feet, the poor defenders will dive in. Rio will stay on his feet and make sure he wins that sort of stuff. Rio, Vidic and Van der Sar were an incredible trio. An absolutely incredible trio. Keegan Jones says, the one thing that really agitates me is the favouritism of Anthony. I think that's a fine criticism, to be honest. He's come straight back into the 11 like nothing's happened. 1 goal in his last 77 shots. No, it's not, is it? Wow. Ant says, Rio was the velvet glove. Vidic was the iron fist. I think that diminishes how hard Rio was as a player. He could really put it on you still. Agaz says, I know I've said this before, but we need to improve on the worst instead of replacing the best. We have basically no back line, and the gap in quality after our first 2 centre-backs is massive. I totally agree. Lee says Rio was class apart from Stam, name one better. Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree. And Rio's even asked me, what the fuck did you rate in Stam so much? And I've told him, I think he was a bit of a combination of Rio and Vidic. Like, he could go 1v1 and fucking mully on the halfway, but he also had the recovery pace. He had the heading of Vidic, but he also could play football as well. Like, he could play. Like, people don't ever fucking talk about Jaap Stam's ball playing ability. He was a fucking Dutch centre-half. The guy would have been a fucking central midfielder if he had been British. Like, he was a fucking serious footballer. Nathan says Rio was a defender back then that you see nowadays. He was well ahead of his time. Not just that, but look at the fucking level of striker that Rio was coming up against. Just go look at some of the fucking players that he played against, and then look at the state of some of the strikers that are playing out there now. There's what, a couple? Come on, man. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up there. Cheers for tuning in as always. Enjoy the game tonight, and I will see you after it for a review. Make sure to subscribe if you're new, and like the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Laters. Hey, thank you for watching the video. If you are new around these parts, then don't forget to subscribe. My channel is proudly supported by my community on Patreon. If you'd like to get a little bit of extra content, a Discord group, meetups, 5-a-side games, weekly podcasts, behind the scenes, and even an occasional bit of transfer news as and when I get it, then for the price of a pint, you can show your appreciation for the content that we make and get some goodies for doing so as well. Check the link in the description or click the button right here. You'll also find all of my socials here too if you want to follow me on any of those platforms. Nice one.